As Rogue and Cyclops both battle to rescue their people from the clutches of Dr. Ellis in the Graymalkin Prison, will they end up coming to blows? Well, let's hop to the pages of Uncanny X-Men issue number 7, a continuation of the Raid on Graymalkin event, and find out what happens next together, shall we? Alrighty then, even though this is the second part of this big X-Men from Ashes crossover, this story actually takes place before, during, and after the events of the first part. You see, before Cyclops and his Alaska team actually made their own plans to raid the Graymalkin Institute, he actually had a one-on-one conversation with Rogue to try and get her to stand down. The idea being that if too many X-Men all rock up to Graymalkin at once, suddenly it doesn't look like a daring raid, and suddenly it starts looking like an actual declaration of war. This also once again serves as a perfect encapsulation of why Cyclops and Rogue aren't exactly seeing eye to eye at the moment. Anne-Marie doesn't exactly like how Scott has gotten so militaristic recently and continuing on like Krakoa never actually ended while they're all still actually dealing with all the trauma and the fallout. And Cyclops basically thinks Rogue and the others are being a bunch of shiftless babies and that they should either get involved or stand the hell back and let him make all the choices. So yeah, not exactly the most exciting or dramatic mutant schism, but hey, there it is. Of course, Rogue and her team aren't going to listen to Cyclops, they're going to save Jubilee and Calico no matter what. Rogue readies her forces only to see Ransom, Jitter, and Death Dream decide they're coming along too, despite the fact that they've basically only been X-Men for a couple weeks now. Calico was stolen on their watch. They're gonna be part of this rescue mission, damn it, even if they have to sit at the kids' table while they do it. Now, how exactly are Rogue and her Louisiana X-Men going to break into the former Xavier school? Well, luckily Gambit still has his spare Eye of Agamotto, which makes teleportation a breeze. Geez, apparently it also does your taxes, and it's lemon-scented too. What can't this thing do? Now, back over in Graymalkin, Calico and Jubilee are being walked to their cells. Calico is being cut loose, her rich parents having actively paid her bail. Jubilee is still pretty pissed off about the brutality that was delivered upon Beast in the last issue, and as such mouthed off to Ellis, only for her to get a similar beating, what with her not being able to access her powers thanks to dampening collars. Now, in a bit that shocked me, Ellis is actually good to her word when it comes to cutting Calico loose. Apparently her parents' check cleared and they're not even going to force her to leave with an armed escort. Again, this lady and her whole organization's motivations really fascinate me. She clearly hates mutants, but she also loves money much more. Naturally, it's pretty hard for poor Calico to be on her own, but wouldn't you know it, she's not alone for long as her horse Ember actually ends up reuniting with her, and with that, Calico is able to activate her own powers again. She's also made really good friends with Jubilee and Beast and isn't going to leave them blown in the wind. In fact, as we discovered in this issue, it was actually Calico and her horse Ember who managed to knock down the front gate to the Graymalkin Prison, allowing Rogue and everyone else to get inside. It's also right around here too, the events of the previous X-Men story actually end up reconnecting to this one. We see Scott and his team enter the facility after blowing the generators and causing earthquakes with Magic's limbo demons. In fact, Death Dream has a pretty good joke as they enter the prison where he says, "Did anyone else see those demons? No, just me. We're just treating this like this is normal now, okay." Jubilee also manages to give herself the slip as well. We see that she actually stole a fork from the cafeteria and uses it to pick her power-dampening collar, rescuing not only herself, but Beast along the way before eventually regrouping with Calico. Isn't that funny? Everyone came to rescue them, and yet in the end, the three actually managed to rescue themselves. From there, you pretty much know the rest if you read the last issue. Blob and the Trustees end up jumping Cyclops' team, only for Rogue to swoop on in and steal away some of Blob's powers. Scott is happy for the save, but he's not happy to see Rogue, as she basically ended up completely disregarding everything he had said previously. The situation ends up growing more tense too, because, well, this was a whole crossover event seemingly sold on the back of the two X-Men teams fighting, so I guess we kind of need to start doing that now. In fairness, Simone does try and figure out a reason for them to fight without everyone seeming like a total asshole. Basically, Wolverine tells the new young untested X-Men to watch for Cyclops to touch his temple, because if so, that means he's gonna start fighting. And indeed, that's exactly what Scott ends up doing, but he's not actively trying to work his concussive blast. Instead, he's trying to talk to Quentin Quire up in the jet, who has come under attack. Ransom, Jitter, and Death Dream take this to mean that the shit has hit the fan and rush Scott and his team, and because of that, Scott and his team have to defend themselves, meaning that Rogue, Wolverine, and Gambit have to step on in to protect their kids, and a whole big fracas ends up breaking out because of it. Again, maybe not a great reason to start a hero hero versus hero fight, but there it is. There's also a couple other extra layers on here too, like Temper being mad at Wolverine because she was technically a criminal back on Krakoa and isn't over it yet. But really, that's as deep as it goes. No one team seems particularly stronger than the other, though in the end I think I'm gonna have to give the actual victory to Cyclops and his crew, if only because the fight is stopped when Juggernaut ends up breaking through the building. They had set him up way earlier of having run from the city limits to here to maximize the damage caused. Though, funny thing about that, when the dust actually clears, we see the damage has managed to reveal the secret prison cell where both Rogue and Cyclops assume that Dr. Ellis has been keeping Professor Xavier this whole time. Both of these X-teams might have come here to save their own people, but if they can actually liberate Xavier, then maybe this whole thing won't look like one giant boondoggle at the end of the day. Unfortunately, though, they're going to have one last major roadblock to overcome in the form of the Trustees, who have not only had this time to regroup, but now they come packing Wolfpack Sentinels, which are just like regular Sentinels as far as I can tell, but they're shaped like attack dogs because, well, you know, reasons. And it's on that note right there the comic comes to a close, everybody. So that was Uncanny X-Men issue number 7, another enjoyable, if not exactly exceptional, tie into this brand new Raid on Graymalkin event. If nothing else, I guess it's good they managed to dispense with the whole hero versus hero fight fairly early on in this story. And while the justification for the fighting was flimsy at best, it wasn't stupid, which I appreciate. Lord knows there's way worse reasons for super teams to fight, especially when we're talking about the X-Men. So I'll happily accept kids threw the first punch because they actively don't know any better because they haven't been X-Men for longer than like a week. Hell, I'll say this too, I'm actually genuinely surprised that they ended up finding Xavier's prison cell in this. It seems like no one has actively been looking for Xavier, considering everything that went down at the end of Krakoa, and finding him here and now is kind of like a happy accident. And if they do get him out, you have to wonder what team he'll end up going with. I mean, Cyclops and his guys technically have Magneto living at their base, so I guess it would only make sense that he go off with Rogue and their crew. I do hope there's another big reveal or escalation when it comes to Dr. Ellis and the Trustees, because honestly, now that it's their first big up at bat as big X-Men bad guys, they're kind of not doing it for me. They're not bad, they're just very, very understated. Overall, I'd feel comfortable giving this one a 7.5 out of 10. It's getting the job done. Hey there everyone, it's your pal Cape Joel again, and if you're seeing my face right now, that means you watched to the end of the video, and I'll always be grateful for that. Retention helps in this crazy YouTube game, and so does becoming a patron. If you head on down to the description, you can find a link to my Patreon page. Recently just redid all the tiers, a lot of cool stuff offering up there, exclusive commentaries, exclusive polls, behind the scenes concept art for Capes and Quest, that's the brand new D&D show I've started soon. Never been a better time to become a patron. You can become a patron for as little as $1 a month and help the channel grow and, you know, help me continue to deliver content like what you just saw. So I want to thank you all, and I will see you again next time. Bye-bye.